I'm gonna tell you one reason why I think League of Legends is a better game than Dota 2. Now, hold your horses, I know what you're thinking, but this only has to do with the number one tip on this list, coming right up. Right, now I know I have triggered some people with that statement, but hear me out, because my number one tip on this list has to do with animations and how they are telegraphed. One very important tip in player experience is making animations for the player fast or instant. Here's one thing League of Legends does, is when your character attacks in League of Legends, it's instant. When you click on an enemy to attack it with an auto attack, like shoot an arrow, strike it with the sword, it's basically instant, though it instantly hits. But then, after it hits, there's an animation to make up for that. Let me give you an example. One example given by a Riot Games employee is on the character called Varus. And Varus has a bow. The way it works is basically when you click an enemy to attack it, it shoots an arrow. And only after it shoots instantly, you get the draw the next arrow animation. So the arrow is always ready. The next time you attack, it releases the arrow, loads another arrow and keeps it there. That way, when the character keeps attacking, it looks fluent, right? It looks like he keeps shooting arrows, but the animation is instant. Now, Dota 2, on the other hand, for many of its heroes, it's not instant. There's a slight delay on the attack animation. And that has to do with the feedback the player is getting from the game. And League of Legends excels at this, in my opinion, over Dota. Everything in League of Legends is basically instant, and you get that player feedback. The moment you press a button, the moment that thing happens. To summarize my number one tip, player animations for actions should be instant. My number 1.5 tip, however, is that enemy AI, NPC animations should have a bit of delay. That way players can know how to dodge attacks, block attacks, and so on. Basically, any single player game does this, and this should be a no-brainer by now for most game designers. Your enemies, especially if it's a boss, they should have telegraphed animations. The player should have time to dodge, right? The players should be instant. The attack should be instant, but enemy attacks should not be instant. The enemy attacks should first raise their sword and then strike. That way it gives the player time to dodge, block, intercept the attack. 2 tips in one. My second tip in this video has to do with tutorials. Let's hate on mobile games. Let's hate on those a little bit, because so many mobile mobile games, because their tutorials are absolutely atrocious. And that's a big barrier of entry for many people. I think it is a big barrier of entry for me when I have to click through tutorials, through buttons. Here, there's an arrow on a button. Oh, click on the button. Oh, let's buy a sword for your next fight. A sword. You buy the sword. Okay, now let's fight a monster. Oh, that's exciting. Click on this button to attack the monster. Oh, congratulations. Woo! Oh no, your health is at 98%? Let's buy a potion. I'm making all of this sound pretty nasty, but I absolutely understand that some new players, some new gamers absolutely need tutorials like this, but hear me out, because there is a way around. The core problem of these mobile games is not the tutorials, it's that they're really confusing as hell. Open up any mobile MMO, any mobile multiplayer game, and you're gonna see tons of menus, tons of things to click on, rewards here, tons of currencies, get this, do that. The screen is absolutely full and absolutely overwhelming, not only for beginner players, but also for more veteran players, for people who are used to games. I'm used to games and I cannot get used to that. It's an atrocious way to do things. If you want to introduce your player to your game, do it slowly. Introduce things on your screen as you go, let the player kind of discover that. The game should be quite intuitive to play. For the love of God, just avoid those kind of tutorials. Just make it so that you introduce elements to the player one by one, slowly. Don't clutter the screen with menus and options, arrows, highlights. Do them one by one. and make them obvious, make it obvious what those things do. There is a language barrier here. I've seen many games poorly translated into English and I can absolutely understand it. Therefore, here's my number 2.5 tip. If you're not a native speaker and if you're not completely sure on your English skills, use super simple English for the tutorials. Remove words such as that or in order to. Remove the. Sometimes the is not needed at all, believe it or not. Make your sentences as simple as possible. Make it so that players can understand what's going on. Not only English speaker players, but non-native speakers, non-English speaker players, players with very poor English skills. If you cannot localize your game, I think you should make your tutorials in very simple, plain English. My third tip. This one is actually a very simple tip. It has to do with explosions. You know what would be cool when you shoot a barrel and it explodes? That things around the barrel also explode. I'm not sure if you can absolutely consider this a game design tip, but I love it. Let's say it's as simple as that. When you shoot something that explodes, you can make it trigger another explosion somewhere else. If you shoot a barrel that explodes, you can make it trigger the explosion of another barrel and it explodes as well. This is a really fun thing that you can add to your game. If your game has explosions, exploding barrels and stuff like that, you can absolutely add from time to time this interaction in which you chain things that explode together, because it's an absolutely amazing feeling for the player. Shooting something and seeing it explode, seeing it, the domino effect of explosions on the screen, that is really fun. It's a really fun thing to do. It has to do with game feel. I'm not sure what else I can say about it. It's a very simple tip. Chain together explosions. Let's get to number 4. My number 4 tip is to be very careful with movement, because sometimes movement of the player diagonally can be faster than moving in one direction. Hear me out. The way I've seen many games implement movement is when you move to the left, you move 100 pixels per second. If you move down, you also move 100 pixels per second down. But what happens if you hold both left and down at the same time? Well, you're gonna think you're gonna move 100 pixels left and 100 pixels down. If you do the math, that is not 100 pixels diagonally. That is 141 pixels diagonally. It's 41% faster. I will put the math on the screen if you don't believe me. Is this a problem? It doesn't have to be. If you choose to make your character move diagonally faster than left, right, up and down, that is absolutely your choice, but the important thing here is to make it a choice. Is to not do it by mistake, because if you do it by mistake, then you're missing out on the possibility that you are actually moving your character in all directions with the same speed. Now, if you're using a joystick, on the other hand, you might encounter some stranger problems because you'll have to do some more math, perhaps. You basically need to obtain the angle and use sine or cosine to calculate the speed. The way it works is you're supposed to use sine and cosine to extract the left speed and the down speed for your diagonal movements. If you want to move diagonally 100 pixels, you're gonna see how many pixels you gotta move to the left and how many pixels you gotta move down. The way you do that is with sine and cosine. Let's say you're moving at a 45 degrees angle. If you want to move 100 pixels diagonally at 45 degrees, you're gonna have to move around 70 pixels left and 70 pixels down. And that being said, if you like game design, I've made multiple videos on game design tips. I've made videos on game mechanics I like in games, so definitely do check those out. I have linked them in the description. And also, if you like this video, please do hit that like button, because it helps me a lot. It doesn't cost you anything and you're really helping a small indie developer and YouTuber get their audience, because I want to spread these messages to as many people as I can. I want to share my game design tips. I want to share everything I've learned over the years, so definitely do help me out by clicking the like button for this video. And if you like my content, do consider subscribing to my channel. I upload every week And follow me on Twitter and Facebook, and we can talk there as much as possible. Do contact me, do talk to me, DM me, PM me, mail me, fax me, phone me, don't phone me. And until the next video, I wish you the happiest, merriest of New Year's and a great death journey.